Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3. Good evening, Eagle Country. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. Hey, this is Merrill Hutchinson sitting in with the most lovely Linda. Linda, how are you today?
Eagle Country.
What's going on?
Oh, not much, man. Just loving life. School's
Yeah.
about to start.
You're terrible.
Oh.
You're terrible. So, hey, tonight's show I am excited about, but I've been praying about this show.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
This was something that was, I think, laid on my heart. I ran it by you as we were trying to prep things out. And so right off the bat, I just want to I ask our listeners to hear us out. What we're going to talk about tonight is stuff that is going to be very useful in the home, in the marriage, but it's going to walk out of the home.
Right.
All right. Yeah. And so for that reason, hang in there with us. We may step on some toes just because, sometimes we don't want to be wrong, right? We don't like to be corrected or anything like that. But anyway, I ask you to hang with us.
Yeah, and we actually changed our lineup. This is not the planned show for this weekend, but we felt like what we see in this country, we're talking about unity tonight in a time of great divisiveness in our country as well as our homes. It's creating an environment that is so toxic and so deadly to our families, relationships, our communities. So I think it's an important one, hon, and I agree. I think we need to tackle it.
Yeah, and with all that being said, I want to say that you and I do not want this show to ever be political in nature.
No.
Because it's God's word supersedes all of our political views. Yeah. And that's the way we believe.
And that's not going to get us anywhere.
Right. And so we really, we heard a great sermon the other day at church, and it was just about dealing with people's differences.
Right, that don't agree with us.
And then how we go about that. And so that was really what prompted a lot of this thought between you and I. And so our topic is celebrating unity.
Right.
And before we get into all of that, we probably better get some of our housekeeping done.
Yeah, so we want to first thank our sponsors for helping make Rock Solid Radio possible. Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. These are community partners who have said that we believe in the positive programming that you're doing. We want to strengthen our community, and we do believe that this topic of unity is an important one for our community and our homes. So we're thankful to these sponsors. We also want to talk about some of the things coming up. Strong Dads starts this Saturday, hun, at our Rock Solid Families office in St. Leon, Indiana, from 7:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning. Tell a little bit about what that's going to include.
Well, and so I want to make sure we understand, because there's two things that are coming out here. We got the Strong Dads podcast.
Yes.
All right, that actually we just released this week. Okay, and if you didn't hear that, you need to go on to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, and click on the link that will allow you to get the Strong Dads podcast. And that's where Kyle Crawford and I tackle all things dad and husband related. I'm going to, fair warn you, if you're looking for a holier than thou church-toting conversation, you're in the wrong place. Kyle and I really, that's really not who we are, and it's not who we want to act like. We want to be ourselves, and we want to be real and also share our struggles and challenges and what we see. So it is not a holier than thou. It's about two dudes just trying to get it done.
Two dudes. You should have called it two dudes.
No, because he's not cool enough to be a dude. Oh, Kyle Byrne, baby.
Oh, that's
but so the other Strong Dads is the Strong Dads workout. And so that's the actual class that's going to start this Saturday at 7:30. We do a 45-minute workout. We do, and we don't need to be worried about whether we're in shape enough or not. Obviously, I don't want you croaking over a heart attack in the middle, so please make sure that you're fit enough for that. But we come in and I tweak out a workout that works for everybody, as hard as you want to go or as easy as you want to go, and then we follow it by 45 minutes of study related to dads.
I think about your last class, and you had men ranging in their 20s to their 60s, and then you had guys who are like 300 pounds and guys that are 150 pounds. So it definitely had a wide range of levels and,
Well, it was funny. I had 4 guys, each of them weighing well over 250 pounds, and they all jumped up. I have 4 pull-up bars across the back wall. They all jumped up on the bars at the same time, and I felt the building move. And I said, no, that's not going to work. The wall's coming down.
Yeah.
So, we have just a great mixture there.
Yeah, but Hun, let's talk a little bit about why our topic. Why is this heavy on your heart? Why is this prevalent right now for us?
Whether it's the politics that we see, the debates coming on, the Democratic primaries working their way through the process, whether it's President Trump and the latest tweets, whether it's the unrest that we see from gun shootings and looking at extreme groups, we see a huge amount of unrest and tension across our country. And it just, it seems to be filtering into everything that we do. More personally, it filters into our work. I mean, we see huge amounts of tension and dissension within our families, in our marriages. And tonight, what has just kind of been laid on my heart and my mind was that idea that God created our very first sense of community through family. That's our very first, how we experience community. It's actually called a family. And the way that we work, and you and I do this all the time, and we work through trying to restore marriages and families. The way that we do that is very much the foundation for what you do for
community.
A community.
Yeah.
A city, a town, globally, if we take it out that far.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of break this talk today down at the microcosm of a family, just to see how that really works. And then try to kind of extrapolate up to larger numbers and the way we have to go about it.
I think, Hun, you make a great point. If you look at it from the 50,000-foot level, it is overwhelming. And we just see such polarization, and we see division, and we see this huge divisiveness in our cities and towns and across genders, across races, and socioeconomic classes. It's just crazy. And so it's overwhelming at the 50,000-foot level. But I think what your heart is aching for is that if we could start with the ground zero, the grassroots of a marriage and a family, that it will ripple out into our communities, our schools, our neighborhoods, our states, our countries. And so that's where hopefully we are going to tackle.
Family teaches civility.
Yes.
And civility
is
what is lacking. And again, I by no means, again, don't turn us off, folks. Hang in there. Don't, this show's going to drive me crazy. No, this country's no strangers to divisiveness, division, right? I mean, it's in large part how we were formed, right? We divided, we separated from the king.
Right.
And that was the Revolutionary War. And so that division was really what launched us. So we're not strangers to it. But when this country was formed, which continues to make this country stand out above and beyond any other country that's ever been formed, was the idea of, okay, we need to protect some basic things, what we call, God-given rights, inalienable rights, and alienable rights are just those rights that can't be taken away because they were given to us by the Creator.
Yeah, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and so when the creators came together to do that, that sounded great, and it is great. Mm-hmm. But what we have is confusion between what life is, right? Mm-hmm. Abortion issues. I mean, we would get confused on whether that's somebody
right or
has
wrong,
that right. Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have the freedom to do, whether it's to step on your toes or not. Mm-hmm. And the pursuit of happiness. Well, define happiness, right?
Right.
Define happiness. And so, and again, they said the pursuit of happiness. They did not say happiness.
Yeah, and this really comes into play where people say, I deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
And so what does happy look like? And if it's at the expense of other people's rights or, basic individual rights, then we got to look at, if your idea of happiness is going out and shooting everybody, is that allow you to be able to pursue that happiness?
Right.
So we have to be really careful with saying that.
Yeah. And, and back in 1992, a famous saying came to be from a man by the name of Rodney King. And so many of you out there listening will be like, oh, yeah, I remember the Rodney King story. And Rodney King was he was a black man that was pulled out by some police officers, and was being excessively addressed and beat, actually. And while this was going on, it was being filmed. And he cried out with, why can't we all just get along? And that kind of became a phrase, why can't we all just get along? And after that whole situation, the police officers were acquitted. It came out as a big racist issue, and the riots in Los Angeles began in 1992. And so the question that I want to go back to, though, is just what he said. Why can't we all just get along? We ask that all the time at our own house. Why can't we all just get along? A house of
peace.
Yeah.
And Hun, I want to go back to this because you see this daily on the nightly news. And part of it, I think, is the disrespect for authority. If we're not teaching it in the home, that there are people that have been put in your life to guide you, to have authority over you, whether it be a teacher, whether it be a policeman, whether it be, a boss. If we don't teach that in the home when they're kids, then they're not going to do that in the streets when they're pulled over by a policeman, or in the school when they get told they're no in a classroom. If we don't teach that, then that divisiveness and that lack of civility is going to seep out into the community.
Yeah, and this is not, this is what their problem is. This is what our problem is. And so each of us, no matter what side you tend to fall on right now, whether you feel like something is happening unjustly to you or vice versa, we both have a part in doing this. And so I think it's really important to first put your finger back in your pocket and stop pointing it, all right, and start looking at your part. And the reason why we want to go after this whole topic from the microcosm of the marriage is because this is how we operate when you and I do marriage and family coaching. And we're going to break it down from that and really try to figure out, like, okay, so how do we get this even rolling? So these are probably more philosophical approaches that we have to get right. And then we implement, and we're going to show at the family level and then extrapolate up, okay?
And you also have to remember, Hun, we're living in a postmodern era where there's no such thing as absolute truth anymore. It's all about relativism of, well, that's what your opinion is, moral relativism, what's right to you, what's right to me. And so at Rock Solid Families, we believe there is a rock that we build our lives on, that we build our families on, and that is Jesus Christ. And that truth does not change, but people do. And the way they approach people. And so we have to kind of take a step back in all this and have some humility, have some wisdom and discernment, that we're willing to look at other people's perspective to see what is truth and what is opinion. We're not going to agree on everything. That's unrealistic. We won't see that until Jesus comes back. We are going to have people and things that we disagree with. But it's how we respond to those disagreements that matters. You don't have to choose between grace and truth. It's always going to be this tension. That was what our sermon was about a couple weeks ago.
Right. That
we're living in this world of grace where we forgive and we allow things, but we also have this truth that we stand on, we believe in. And so that tension is where we've got to find some civility.
Yeah, so the cool thing about what we learned in that particular sermon was that replace the word tension. So there's people who think they're right,
Right.
and there's people that feel like they're just full of grace and accepting of everyone and everything, and everybody's beautiful and everything's right. So there's these two dichotomies, but the thing that actually puts them together, right, is this tension that we feel like, well, there needs to be a level of right and a level of grace. That tension could be replaced by a word called love.
Right. Which we're doing instead of hate.
Right. That's what love is. Love is that idea of that balancing the grace with the rights and the wrongs, the truth.
Right.
And so I think it's very important that we at Rock Solid Families, we had to establish for our business, right, that, okay, when you walk in our doors, what is the truth that we're going to work off of?
Right.
We have to have a foundation. And again, if you're not going to buy what we're going to work off of, then respectfully, we say, it's okay, you need to go somewhere else, because this is how we have to operate.
Right.
And so this is what in a country is called a constitution, right? And you have to have a constitution by which we work.
Right.
It doesn't mean by which we agree on everything.
Exactly.
It's basically the referee for how the game's going to be played.
Right. So we believe, as Christians, we believe that the Bible is our manual, and we go to it for instruction, right? Our friend Frank used to say the Bible is the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so we believe that that's where we go to for direction. But that doesn't mean if you don't agree with that we're going to kick you out to the curb. I mean, we work with a lot of couples and families and individuals that they're not buying that yet.
Right.
But they're coming into us so broken, so hurting, feeling hopeless, feeling lost. And so we kind of sit down and we unpack that. Well, hey, what is the truth that you're working off of? What is the foundation that you're building on? Is it solid? Is it going to be trustworthy? And so,
or does it change with my mood?
Oh, my goodness.
Does it change with my tiredness? Does it change with my age?
Yeah.
So let's get in and talk a little bit about something that I think got us a little bit off course earlier on in this country. I'm going to go back a little bit, probably close to 20 years ago. In my school world as a counselor, I started getting all kinds of things coming across my desk, all these mailers and flyers and stuff that said, celebrate diversity, celebrate diversity, celebrate diversity. And at a first glance, that just seems to make sense, right? That's just like a really cool, oh yeah, celebrate everybody's differences.
And if you don't, you're a bigot.
Well, that's not how it was sold to me, hon. It just said celebrate diversity, celebrate the person. And if you don't, you're a bigot, is what has started to come out with that. And here's the problem. Folks, we have to trash the idea of celebrate diversity. That does not mean to be upset with somebody who's diverse or different than us.
Right.
We have to trash the idea that we celebrate diversity. What I came to learn very quickly in the school world is I did away with celebrating diversity, and I said, in my work with my students, we're going to celebrate similarity. We're going to celebrate unity. Because those are the things that we hold together. There's over 7 billion people on this earth. If I'm going to celebrate diversity, I got a long way to go.
You are going to be super divided.
Right. And so instead, there are going to be certain things that I simply don't agree with or don't understand, or I just don't get it, whether it's music or food or how somebody lives. Okay, that's different than me. And for me to have to celebrate that, that's going to be hard for me. I need to respect it, but then I need to go to that person and I need to say, well, what do we have in common?
Yep.
And well, when we start to do that, and we do this in marriages all the time, because obviously the reason why they came to us for marriage coaching is they came to us because there was divisiveness.
Right.
And the divisiveness grew to the point where it was all they could think about.
Right. That's all they're looking for.
Right. And so what you
makes
and
them
I
mad.
do from the very beginning is we define the divisiveness, and then we start to bring it around and say, well, what do you have in common? Why are you
Right.
even together?
Exactly.
What brought you
Why do you
here?
like each other?
Well, why do you even get married? And when that conversation starts to come around, we start to have the opportunity to celebrate the unity that they have. At that point, man, this is a game changer. This is a game changer. This country is so awesome. It has so many great things. And we are so now focused on what divides us. And we need to put it aside, and we need to say, you know what? I don't care if you're a black man, a white man, a yellow man, a red man. It does not matter. Man, woman, anything. What do you care about? Oh, you care about your family? You care about having dignity to go to work?
Yeah.
You care about taking care of people? You care about the food that you're going to have?
Yeah.
Oh my, those are the similarities. And
Right.
when we start to break it down to those levels, whether it's in the marriage or the community, we see incredible things happen.
Yeah. And, and I think about our founding fathers and how they saw the common bond. I mean, they were a nation of immigrants, right? A melting
Yeah.
pot.
Yeah.
And so, but what they had in common was this belief that there was this absolute truth. There was this God who loved them, who had given them these freedoms. And that's what they built it on. I love the organization called wallbuilders.com, I think it is, or wallbuilders.org, that talks about going back to the basics of what we had in common. What was the common thread of our nation? Let's get back to that, because that is what made us one of the most unique countries in the world,
Yeah.
and what we founded ourselves on. And so I love this in a book called Mama Bear Apologetics. It really talks about how our kids are so being filled with so many different messages, and divisiveness is one of the greatest ones. It says there are certain parts of humanity that, if removed, create a vacuum. Whatever fills the void ultimately becomes a monster, because we are being ruled by something that was never meant to rule. The moderns rejected God, which created a vacuum of worship that reason and science tried to fill. When the postmodernists, which is where we are today, rejected objective truth, emotions were next in line for the throne. Oh my gosh. And emotions are great followers, but horrible leaders. Our society is currently living out the grand experiment of what happens when we put emotions in charge of all time. It's not pretty. And when I listened to that and read that, I'm like, that's where we are. We're leading with our emotions. And those emotions can get really messy.
Yeah, and so my emotions start to formulate what I believe is true. And that's when you start to really understand that, you start to understand the difference between absolute truth and relative truth.
Yep.
And absolute truth is, well, who's going to define that? Because
Right.
this is going to step on people's toes.
Right.
And that's why, we do believe that the Bible is the absolute truth. In fact, that's how this country was formed.
Yep.
You talked about wall builders earlier, and we go through the many, many, many documents and letters that were shared between the founding fathers. And they unanimously all believed in the absolute truth written in the Bible.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean everybody followed the exact Christian way of going to church and everything, but they believed in the nature of God and the one God. And so that relative truth is replaced by an absolute truth.
Why do you think our money has "In God We Trust"? I mean, that was not done haphazardly. That was done very intentionally to remind us for centuries later that that's who we lean on. That's who we trust in, God. And so I don't think that was done, just by randomness.
So when we get to work with a couple, one of the very first things we do is we talk about, okay, so what are the rules that you guys operate by?
Common values.
Yeah, and this is where we start to separate, because people go, well, I think he should do this, or I think she should do that, okay? And so we have to say, okay, well, if you're willing, you came into a Christian family coaching business, let's read and see what the Bible says that we should be as far as husband and wife and how we should treat.
And that's why
each
I
other.
love working with premarital couples who maybe really have never given it any thought. Like, what is our common ground? What are our common values? And so they kind of come in haphazardly, maybe not raised with anything, and then decide, oh, we probably need to build on a common ground. Something that's unshakable, hon, because this world will blow you around like a typhoon. You know, you have got to find something that you're going to be landing on and building off of.
The whole idea that community, town, family, these are all one entities, right? Made up of many little individual parts. And this is that whole idea that we talk about, you know, in Romans 15:6. So that with one mind and one voice you may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. With one mind and one voice. In other words, everybody coming together for the good of one thing. Marriage. In marriage, we talked about two becoming one. When we form a town, we talk about everybody working together for that
community,
town, that community coming together. And so this is so hard because we talk about everybody should have their own rights and their own freedoms and their own. Well,
my.
Yeah, and it's so sometimes, you know, when we talk about our marriage work, we talk about you have to die to self.
Yeah.
No, I talked with a gentleman today about that. He said, I am still struggling with this dying to self thing. Because on paper, I can read it and say it very easily. Yeah, I got to die to self. But that means giving up on whether you're right or she's right. That means giving up on whether you got what you want at that moment or not.
You know, hon, I think of this when you're talking about it, I think of that word synergy. It's one of my favorite words. And if you look up the definition, it's the creation of a whole that is greater than the single sum of its parts. And so that's why Dr. Stephen Covey, he described it as a habit, number 6 actually, in his book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think all our country should read this book together because it really helps us how we get along, how we work together to do something greater than we could do our alone. So synergy is better than my way or your way. It's our way, he says. Innovate and problem solve with those who have different points of view. To put it simply, synergy means 2 heads are better than 1, Dr. Covey says. Synergy is the habit of creative cooperation. It's teamwork, open-mindedness, the adventure of finding new solutions to old problems. Wouldn't that be just a really novel thought in our country today?
Yes, yeah, and it would. It's just we've become very hypersensitive on whether we're getting our way. And so we see when that happens in the marriage how we just go right down the tubes. And now that moves right out into community and globally. And so let's back up. And so there's some things that we're going to challenge you.
Yeah, what's our challenge this week?
So this week is not like a step-by-step, but there's some thoughts here of I want you to be thinking about. This week, I want you within your own home,
focus
within your marriage, your family. I want you to think about the things that you have that are in common, the similarities. And I want you to avoid the differences this week, okay? So what do we have in common? What are we living for? What do we like to do together? What are the conversations we enjoy having? The similarities. And just avoid the differences for a while. And also watch what happens to the number of arguments you have.
Yeah, the differences kind of disappear because you're not focusing on that. You know, we oftentimes talk about if you were to close your eyes and I say, okay, I look in the room and everything that's yellow and you're looking around, and then I say, close your eyes and then say, what's blue? It'd be hard because you were looking for yellow. So look for the similarities, not the differences. Also, truth. Focus on the absolute truth of whatever it is your common values and faith are. For us, it's the Bible, but versus relative truth. Don't let your feelings kind of rule.
Well, and hon, I want to go to this truth thing because you discuss truth among yourself, okay? So you and I say, well, what do we believe here? And it's if we're in agreement, okay, we kind of just go right through that. Yeah, cool, we're both on the same page. If we're not, all right, one of the very first things you should do is you should find the common judge or mediator, and that is Scripture. We challenge you. If you are in disagreement on any issue, dig it up in the Bible and say, well, what does this say that we should do? And try to find that absolute truth.
Selfishness, not selfishness, but selflessness, to think about selflessness, putting somebody above yourself. examining yourself. What do I own in this?
This is that taking responsibility for your part.
Yeah. What am I willing to own? Not what they're doing wrong, but what you're willing to do. And then celebrate others, not yourself. Put them in a place where they are celebrated and valued.
Yeah, and if everybody's celebrating everybody else,
We'll
you're
get
all going to be
celebrated.
happy.
Yeah,
We're going to have
yeah.
a party. So anyway, hey, this topic can go on, but hopefully we get the idea of the importance of that similarity. But we need to wrap up. So we want to thank Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. Thank you, listeners, and keep tuning in and helping us out at Rock Solid Family by listening to Rock Solid Radio. Good night.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.